Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Everyday Objects in Ancient Rome by me, Lily Caps. I wanted to talk about some of the objects that ancient Romans were using in their day-to-day life that we use every day, even now. Think about the water system that leads to your bathroom, or think about the laws that we abide by and how they protect us. The ancient Romans already had their hand in things like this. So let's go ahead and dive on in. I wanted to introduce you to this new exhibit and welcome you again. This showcase includes many of the artifacts that benefited their livelihood and were important for everyday life. My goal here is to help you recognize the importance of Roman Empire and how it contributed to the many things that we follow today. So, the first thing I wanted to talk about was the 12 tables. Believe it or not, the ancient Romans were already establishing and coordinating laws in 449 BCE. These laws would be engraved into bronze tablets and displayed to the public. There were specific rules that were expected to be followed, and to be quite honest, some of them are a little bit outdated. They're definitely a product of their time. So, one of the laws that was on these 12 tablets said that if you were creating insulting music or songs about somebody else, you could be executed for such a heinous crime. That was enough for the death penalty back in the day. There was also not much inclusivity. If you were a man, great. If you were anybody else, a slave, a woman, poor, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you were not really considered valuable enough for their legal system. One of the laws for women is that they had to be accompanied by a guardian. If they were a Vestal Virgin, that they were excluded from this law, but anybody else, you were not allowed to leave without a guardian. These laws, while incredibly advanced, they were definitely a part of the culture that they were in. They also covered property. So if an apple or a fruit fell onto the lawn of somebody else's house, fortunately, that person could keep it. So this just kind of shows you that while these laws and these systems are not the most perfect, they're definitely the beginnings of something amazing. Like, look at what we have today that is so incredibly advanced and helpful to our communities and our civilization as a whole, keeps us in check. That would not be as elaborate as it is today if it were not for the ancient Romans. So let's give them some kudos for that. Now let's talk about currency and the Roman coins. So here we have a coin. This is the front, this is the back. You will see a face on it. His name is Emperor Augustus. He is on this copper coin. Coins were made in Rome and dispersed throughout the country for use. So, as explained by the British Museum, Augustus was responsible for the production of the coin and had the inscription say AAAFF, which is Latin. And the Latin abbreviates for the officials that were behind the production of such coins. So it was kind of their government. And it kind of like gave them a government influence. It kind of reminded them, yes, we have an established society and the government is behind us. The Roman coins and currency were commonly used by the ancient Romans. I think I read somewhere that there was like over 180,000 coins on display at the British Museum. So they were making a lot of these. They would be made of silver, gold, or bronze. But overall, I just wanted you to recognize the fact that these people probably already had an economy. They already had all sorts of finances going on. They had savings and paid taxes, just like we do today. Next, let's talk about the Pont du Gard. The Pont du Gard is a Roman aqueduct. I hope I'm saying that correct. They were large structures with various different parts. They had channels and bridges and tunnels and canals. And these channels or tunnels would carry fresh water to the cities and farms of Rome, which would be their baths and their water source. The Pont du Gard is specifically a Roman aqueduct from 50 AD, and it was during the reign of potentially two separate emperors. We're not really sure which one it was. It was either Claudius or Nero. The Pont du Gard would carry running water from Uzes to a city known as the Nimes via the tunnels that was implemented into the design. So, in other words, these could travel pretty far. They definitely traveled really, really far. And also another thing is that they relied on gravity. So down here I wrote about that. It says, according to the official website that is responsible for the upkeep and preservation of the Pont du Gard, this specific aqueduct is one of the best preserved ones in the entire world. And the water would have traveled 50 kilometers using gravity as its anchor. That is very complex. That is very complex. It's almost genius. You have to really just look at it in awe and think, wow, these people were able to have a water system that supplied them with water. You have to think, how was this water, how was this water recycling itself and keeping it clean and things like that? Like, they were genuinely incredibly smart for that. So, what have you learned here? I hope that you learned that the ancient Romans are not much different from us. We have more in common with people from the past than we may even realize. And this goes for many different cultures, or all cultures, really. Sometimes we forget that we're all human and that we are all capable of doing great things. So thank you, and I really hope you enjoyed this.